This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, a.k.a. the Python Hyena. And folks, we're going to bring out the Gimp today, because 25 years ago, the Gimp was originally brought out. He didn't say much then, but we're going to get him to talk today. Today, the Gimp talks. We're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Pulp Fiction, which I saw in theaters at a double billing with the Santa Claus of all things. And as much as I enjoyed the Santa Claus, Pulp Fiction stuck with me, and stuck with me well. And I have on the phone with me the Gimp himself, the wonderfully talented and vocal this time, Steve Hibbert. How you do, Steve?
Hey, Greg. How are you doing? Thank you very much for having me on. Before we get started, I do want to mention that a double bill of Pulp Fiction and Santa Claus is like a dream double bill to me. I mean,
well, we had the Santa Claus when it opened. We didn't get Pulp Fiction when it opened. And Pulp Fiction, I guess, because of the...
So there you go.
Yeah, because I guess Pulp Fiction, because of the buzz, it came out later. And so we ended up getting it in November or December, whenever it is that when the Santa Claus had opened. So
Indeed. It all makes sense now.
Yeah, it's an interesting double billing. I bet Tarantino would have loved that.
I'm sure he would have, actually. I'm sure he would have. In fact, he owns the New Beverly Cinema back in L.A., so maybe you can send them a message and suggest that as a double bill at the theater.
Yeah. I bet Samuel Jackson would love that.
You're kidding me? He's first in line that night.
I love Pulp Fiction. Like I said, it left an impression on me when I saw it. And I saw it in 1994 when it originally came out. So, I mean,
yeah.
It's hard to believe it's been 25 years. Where does the time go?
You're telling me, kid. You're telling me. Literally, it feels like maybe 2 years ago. Maybe. I don't know. But
yep.
Yeah. Time does fly, as the kids say.
Well, I have since seen Pulp Fiction at a couple of midnight screenings. So, I mean, it's a very, very, very popular film here.
Yeah. Well,
yep.
Yeah, it's a fantastic film. I was fortunate enough before I even auditioned, and more on that later, for the role of the Gimp, I was hanging out with Quentin at the time, name drop, and he gave me a copy of the script to read, and you could just tell from the page, which isn't often the case with the script, oh, this is going to be one of those great movies, and so it was, it was a page turner, and the structure of it was so fascinating, the going back and forth in time and the parallel stories and all of that stuff. So you could just tell. And by then, Quentin had made Reservoir Dogs, of course, and he knew how to put a movie together, obviously. So you could just tell, oh, this is going to be terrific.
And as good as Reservoir Dogs was, this was even bigger than Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I love Reservoir Dogs. It's one of my favorite movies of his. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. Just the leaps and bounds he went, just in terms of filmmaking and storytelling. And, all of those things. Pulp Fiction, just, like I said, it's one of those movies.
Yep.
I think every decade has a movie, you think like, and for me in the 1970s, it would be Chinatown, and probably in the 80s, Raging Bull. And I think in the 90s, there's a good argument to be made that Pulp Fiction is that movie.
I interviewed Bruce Glover from Chinatown and had some really good insight on that movie. Yeah,
so that when all is said and done, if I had to, you said you could only watch one more movie for the rest of your life, God forbid, I'd have to go with probably Chinatown. Actually, I think that's nearly a perfect film.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. No.
And Pulp Fiction is number 2, of course.
Pulp Fiction is, like I said, terrific. And I think, like, every movie Tarantino has done, I've liked. Every one of them. I'd say the
Yeah.
only one that comes close to Pulp Fiction in terms of that big a scale, probably Inglorious Bastards, you know?
Yeah,
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 that might,
yeah,
yeah, in terms of scale, yeah.
yeah, definitely. But like you said, I think all of his movies, um, you know, are worth seeing. They're all terrific, and I'm looking forward to the new one that's coming out this summer, though. The one that's set in Hollywood, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think it's called.
Yes, I'm
And
looking forward to that, but I'm heartbroken that
that,
Burt Reynolds has passed away
I know.
before he got to shoot his scenes. I would have loved to have seen Burt Reynolds in a Tarantino movie.
Yeah, it seems. Yeah, in fact, it's one of those things where you sort of go, "Oh, he wasn't in one before, was he?" So yeah, it just seems like a no-brainer to have had Burt Reynolds in one of his films. And yeah, and a film set in Hollywood in '69. Burt Reynolds. That's like perfect casting.
Well, I hope Quentin will do a kind of a dedication to Burt with
I
this
wouldn't be
film.
surprised. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised, if only to show the funny outtake clip during his end credits from Cannonball Run.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I've always liked Burt, and I was so excited when he was part of this. So, see, one of the things
Yeah.
I like about you got Quentin Tarantino's got his core group of people he uses, like Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Madsen, and he's
Mm-hmm.
got those core group, and those
Mm-hmm.
those guys are great. But I always look forward to seeing these actors be newbies for his films, you know?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
was excited to see Jennifer Jason Leigh in Hateful Eight. I went just to
Yeah.
see her, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. No, the guy has a great eye or ear, whichever it is, for casting. He really, Tarantino really and famous, I guess the most famous one is in Pulp with Travolta, because he was
Yeah.
considered a bit of a, for lack of a better phrase, and I don't agree at all, a bit of a joke in 1993. He was in those
Hmm.
silly, comedies, and people thought of him as Welcome Back, Kotter guy, or maybe Saturday Night Fever at best. But he's always been a terrific actor, and casting him in Pulp Fiction, showed the rest of the world, oh yeah, he really is a great actor. Yeah.
You know what's interesting though is that I saw it at a midnight screening a couple years ago, and I
Hmm.
discovered who the real star of the movie is through that screening.
That,
Every time Samuel L. Jackson's on screen, the audience
oh
react.
yeah. Oh
Every
yeah.
single time.
Yeah. And almost viscerally. I mean, just his power and presence on screen in that film. He's always good in whatever he's in, obviously, but yeah, there's just something about the marriage of role and actor for Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction that's just, like you said, mesmerizing. You can't take your eyes off of him.
Yes. And like I said, audience just reacted every time he was on screen, even when he didn't say anything, like when he's
Yeah, exactly.
got
Yeah.
that drinking that guy's soft drink there and that look, and it's like
Yeah.
people just laugh
Now,
at
I'm
him.
a little disappointed that you didn't say it was Steve Hibbert as the Gimp.
Oh, people react to the Gimp too, but Samuel L. Jackson seemed to, like, every time he's on screen.
By the way, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay. All right, good. Disclaimer.
Well, we got to talk about the Gimp because
Okay.
everybody, like, that's been like a meme now. Bring out the Gimp, you know?
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, it's pretty kooky.
yes, bring out the Gimp. Do you hear that a lot in your family life now?
Oh, yeah. I did for a number of years, indeed, and more so now with social media and memes, and and it's funny. It was a 3-day shoot for yours truly, and I managed to cobble together a career mainly as a TV writer
Mm-hmm.
in lady show business. But of all the credits or anything else I've done, far and away, obviously, the most famous thing is something where you can't even tell it's me. So yeah, no, it became like shorthand. It's one of those cultural things. So I was just, it's very cool to have been a part of that. It's amazing, actually.
Yeah, yeah. And you're sitting there on the floor. They bring out the Gimp, and he's like got his hand on your head, tapping your head.
Yeah, Yeah, and all of that, a lot of that stuff, and my dancing around and weirdo reaction to Bruce Willis when he's, tied up, all of that was pretty much improvised. One of the great things about Quentin as a director, I think as an actor himself, he really loves and trusts actors to make good choices. And so he really allows that freedom on the set and really respects, not to sound too highfalutin about it, but the process of acting and trying things and seeing what works, what doesn't work. And he gives a lot of space for performers to do that in. So, yeah, it was cool. No getting around it.
So, you say you just auditioned for this role, huh?
Yeah, basically, as I mentioned, I knew Quentin, and we were like film nerd friends.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had read the script, and the movie was obviously in pre-production, and they were casting. And he said, "Hey, Steve, you want to come down and audition for that Gimp part?" I'd been a performer with the Groundlings Theater, so Quentin had also done some improv with me there at the theater. And the Groundlings is a very well-known and justifiably famous improv group and popular group in L.A. And so, yeah, sure, I'll come down. So I went and auditioned, and it was basically just Quentin and I doing like a little psychodrama for the casting director. And by the time I got home, this is back in the old days, on my voicemail, Quentin said, "Hey, you got the part. Stay tuned for when you need to show up and do it." So it was great. It was one of those things where you kind of go, cool. And yeah, that's how it happened.
What was your reaction to the wardrobe you had to wear?
Now, that was a bit tricky. I mean, I read in the script, sex slave in head-to-toe bondage gear with a mask and the whole thing. So I knew, all right, cool, I'll be all weird. And but also, I had on a fat suit underneath that tight leather gear because Quentin wanted the Gimp to be a bit pudgier. Oh. So it was, let's just say the T-shirt I had underneath all of that were soaking wet at the end of each day. It was a hot little costume to be wearing, and hot not in the terms of sexy, hot in terms of temperature. Let me be perfectly clear about that.
Something that reminded me of is that I used to watch wrestling back in the day, and one of the great tag teams was Demolition, Axe and Smash. Yeah. And I listened to an interview on them one time, and they were talking, and Axe was saying that Smash was a little hesitant to wear the gear to the ring because it looked like a sex slave, even though they went to the ring and they beat everybody to a pulp.
Right. No, that's a great tradition in wrestling. All the masked wrestlers in Mexico, and that's a venerable tradition in that sport.
Yep. But when you come out, like one of the things I noticed with you got no dialogue. But you're one of these guys that makes the most with what you have. And one of the things that makes the Gimp stand... Yeah, well, it's true. Because one of the things that makes the Gimp stand out is your body movements. You know how to work your body and how to posture yourself whenever you're on screen. Like, for instance, when Bruce Willis is trying to free himself, there's shots of you, the way you're moving your hands and this and that, and was that all improvised? Tell me about getting into that.
Yeah, it actually was all improvised, and it was great. I think, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, Quentin is great about letting actors try things and experiment and do things. So he just said, go nuts and be as weird as you want to be. And I think, actually, in retrospect, being all covered up and not seeing my face made acting all creepy easier. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sure I was I was beat red underneath that mask, just thinking, like, why am I I'm being such a big freak here? But, you just committed to the moment, and the set was great. For obvious reasons, it was a closed set that day, so there was only, a handful of people on set. So, and the other actors in the scene Dwayne and Peter and Bruce Willis and Bing Rames, they were all really supportive, and because they knew, there was a tricky role at best to play being the Gimp. So everyone was really supportive, and it was cool. And they're just, after I would try something, they'd be just off camera there and clap and go, that was great. It was just very, and we were all that way with each other, because everyone has in that scene goes through a lot.
Yeah.
So everyone was incredibly supportive of each other in that, in the pawn shop basement scene.
The pawn shop.
Yeah, I mean the whole set. Well, you were saying, how great that film is and how it had all of its twists and turns. I mean, when the two of them end up in that, the fight continues with the two guys, and they end up in the pawn shop. The last thing you expect happens, and so. Yeah. It's again just an example of great storytelling.
Did you? Here's a question. Did you ever consider and I don't know if you ever went into this with Quentin, but what kind of a backstory the Gimp had?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it. I mean, it wasn't essential to the scene, but just to get a little understanding where this guy dressed up in this head to toe outfit. I think he probably ended up in the pawn shop and was essentially kidnapped by these two guys. And I also played with the idea that at some point they had cut out his tongue. So that's why I couldn't speak, and I just made those kind of gurgly, weird noises. And Quentin liked all of that stuff. And so I just played that. And I also think over time, kind of a Stockholm syndrome thing, he began to like that life there. So that's why when Bruce Willis tries to escape, he tries to alert those guys by, screeching out and all that stuff. So, that's sort of the backstory and where he is in the scene that we kind of came up with.
Well, I guess, and of course, Bruce Willis gets free and whack.
Yeah, I got to do a stunt.
Was that you just hanging there? Like, tell me about doing that.
Yeah, for the last bit of the scene, I'm just hanging by the hook, and I forget what, leather strap or whatever it is, from the ceiling, and just had to be still for a while. And again, I drank gallons of water. It was a 3-day shoot, and that set was tiny. Though a lot of the interiors for Pulp Fiction were filmed in the same warehouse in Culver City there. Mm-hmm. And so you had Jackrabbit Slim's right next door to the pawn shop basement, right next door to Bruce Willis's apartment, So it was done on I forget, I think the budget of the film was about $8 or $9 million, which is really not a lot for a major studio picture. So, no. So that's why we didn't even shoot on a soundstage. We shot in a rented warehouse.
So, where's the Gimp outfit now? Do you wear that out on special occasions?
Actually, it's probably back on the shelf at the costumer rented it from a place called the Pleasure Chest in West Hollywood. So
you frequent there, don't you?
Not to make your skin crawl a little bit, but someone presumably wore that outfit before I got it back in '93, and now over the decades, many more have worn it since, probably without knowing. I don't know if they have a sign at the store saying, "As seen in Pulp Fiction."
So you don't wear that around the house,
No, I really don't. It's never been a part of my lifestyle choices, Greg. I've never, as you related to, what a nice performance. But it was all acting.
Here's the Gimp's home life.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I do have a funny Gimp home life story to tell you, though.
Okay.
Okay. Nothing to do with my personal life at all, because it's not all that fascinating. But you were talking about the film opened in '94, like October, November of '94, And that opening weekend, I'd gone down to visit my parents, or lived in about an hour or so south of L.A., San Juan Capistrano. So I'm coming home on Sunday night, and this is the old days when we did have answering machines and all that stuff. It's funny, it's the second time I mentioned having an answering machine. Anyway, I got home and there were like 48 messages on my phone. And I'm thinking, oh, that right away you think something terrible has happened. And the first message was just somebody, a pal of mine. And then the rest of the messages, 40-some-odd messages, were all from guys saying they had enjoyed my performance in the movie that weekend and would like to get together for a cup of coffee. So again, this is back in the old days. There was no way to Google anyone or, to look up online. They had to sit in the movie, read the end credits, the Gimp, Steven Hibbert is uncredited, and then find a payphone. Maybe they had a cell phone, I don't know, 94 maybe. Call information for, Steve Hibbert in L.A. So they went to some effort. And, needless to say, I did not take up any of the offers, but that's my in the wake of the opening weekend of Pulp. And also, it goes without saying, I became unlisted that week. Yeah, pretty weird.
You don't have 1-800-GIMP?
I really, I should have monetized this whole thing better than I have, Greg. Absolutely.
1-800-THE-GIMP.
Yeah, $1.49 a minute.
Well, I don't know. You're married now, right?
But actually, I'm divorced.
Oh, I was gonna ask if you wore the Gimp outfit on your.
No, hang on, young man. Let's get. No, cheerfully divorced. Twice actually, 0 for 2. I was married to the actress Julia Sweeney.
Okay.
Who's also in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
For 87 to 93, and then I remarried 97, and from that marriage to Alicia, we have 3 amazing kids, so who are very much a part of my life. So, and my youngest, Greg, loves the fact that there's a Gimp action figure.
Well, no. What I was talking about, no, I didn't mean that. I meant I could just picture you standing at the altar with the wife wearing the Gimp outfit.
Oh,
you're dressed in
Mary.
You're dressed in black and she's dressed in white.
Exactly. And all the maid of honor could be some dominatrix. I mean, it would have been a lovely thing.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you get a sense of humor about it because.
Hilarious.
Oh yeah. But I mean, you played the Gimp in this movie, and of course, the other actors kind of went through. Well, you went through a hard time, but jeepers, I can't think of anybody went through a worse time there than maybe Ving Rhames. Holy cow.
Yeah. Well. As I mentioned earlier, that's the reason it was a closed set. That was a terribly difficult thing to go through.
It reminds me of Ned Beatty in Deliverance. It's like so humiliating.
I think that might have been Tarantino's inspiration for that moment in the movie. But yeah, it was he's playing a role, and this is what happens to his character in this scene. But yeah, there's a reason there's no behind-the-scenes photos of the Gimp scene, because there were no photos. I still have the call sheet someplace, and in big red letters on the top, no visitors permitted on the set these days, no photography allowed, multiple exclamation points. Because creepy stuff happens in that scene, and for Ving Rhames especially, you can't be in a much more vulnerable. Thankfully, I can't think of a more vulnerable position to be in. So, everyone was really respectful of that, and again, like I said, it was like a skeleton crew working on the scene for those few days.
Yeah, how did Ving Rhames prepare for that?
I don't know. He's a far better actor than I am. That's tough, and also for the 2 other actors, Peter Green and Dwayne Whitaker. who played the sadist. It's hard for them. That's certainly not their scene at all either. So, for the three actors doing that, I don't know. You just commit to it and commit to, the horror of the moment that's being filmed, and there you go. And it came off,
What was Ving like?
Really nice guy. I think I told you, we were all very supportive of each other in that scene because it was such a, gut-wrenching scene to watch.
Yeah.
It's a really gut-wrenching scene to perform. So everyone was really cool and, and again, really respectful of like what was required of us in the script. And, Quentin was amazing, gave everyone tons of space and, we were all getting paid. We were doing our jobs. So it wasn't a hardship in that regard, but it was, there's no getting around it. It was difficult stuff to do.
Did Quentin want his Gimp outfit back?
Yeah, he did. Oh, shoot, did I say that? Yeah, he was funny. And the thing that was nice about Quentin, in between takes, he was very lighthearted and made, smart, clever little jokes. So it kept what could have been very oppressive and a drag to do, light. And I think that's the reason you were saying in the scene, I'm doing weird little dances and, all that stuff. I think that was largely in part to him keeping it, a fun, supportive, and safe atmosphere to just experiment and do stuff, that obviously normally you don't do. So it was very cool.
I gotta say, this has got to be the best performance I've ever seen Bruce Willis give in his career. And
very well might be. He's a fine actor, and he's just a really soulful performance in that film.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing with him is that we're always seeing him as a hero guy, the action star. And,
Die Hard.
Yeah, but here he's kind of, he's really vulnerable. He's put in a position where he has to go back to the apartment.
Yeah, which is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could just feel the paranoia as he's...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's this great reference to Psycho as he sees Ving Rhames come with the donuts across the road. A nice Psycho reference there when Janet Leigh sees her boss.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I never thought of that before. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I thought you were going to say when he goes into the bathroom in the shower scene, but and it's just John Travolta sitting on the John. But no, I know what you mean.
I don't know how many people found that confusing when John Travolta gets gunned down in the middle of the film and then you see him, but they have to tie together the fact that you got three storylines going here.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. The structure of that movie is so cool in that regard. It's fascinating. Yeah, someone once made, speaking of online and finding memes and stuff, there's a great chart of Pulp Fiction in chronological order that, where it tries to make sense of all those parallel stories, and it's cool to look at.
So I guess technically the end of the narrative is where they drive off there in the motorbike, huh?
Yeah, I think so. That would be the end of the film, right? But thankfully it isn't. There's still another 40 minutes of other story stuff to wrap up. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Bruce was great in this, and
Well, he didn't have those, like we were talking about Die Hard. It's all like wisecracking and snappy rejoinders, and he didn't have that in this. This character, the way the script is written, the character doesn't have those things, and it was cool to see Bruce Willis playing that vulnerability. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and of course, Peter Green playing Zed, the sadistic cop. Don't ever get arrested by this guy.
Yeah, right. What people do in their personal lives, we just don't know, Greg.
Yeah, you'll notice, too, it looks like Peter Green's wearing mascara.
He very, very well be.
I don't know. Maybe it's just the way I look at it. But when he pulls
Yeah.
away from Ving Rhames once Bruce
Mhm.
Willis breaks in there,
Mhm.
it's like, is he
He
wearing
might
this?
be. I don't know. Wait a minute. Is he wearing eyeliner? What's going on? I've had, the only other time I've met Peter Green, besides the days of those filming way back in 25 years ago now, is I've done a couple of fan conventions.
Mm-hmm.
With Steve Hibbert as the Gimp, and I've always done them with other performers from Pulp Fiction. And this past April, Dwayne Whitaker and Peter Green and I did one in L.A., and such a nice guy. He's a really nice guy, and Dwayne is actually a good friend. So it's nice I've managed to, keep in touch with those guys.
Did he say bring out the Gimp?
Yes, he did. Hilarious.
Yeah, and of course, was it Dwayne Whitaker, the other actor?
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
The other actor.
He should have, just let it go.
You think?
He had to just do that. I love it when Bruce Willis, number one, I thought it was cool that he decides to go back. He has a chance to escape, and he's like,
oh, yeah, he can just fly. He can get the hell out of there. But yeah.
And he decides to, number one, it covers his ass with Marcellus Wallace, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, because, now he calls off the hit on him.
Yep.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But anyway, go on.
But nonetheless, it's humorous, and this always gets a laugh too, is when he looks at all the things he could grab. He grabs a hammer, grabs a baseball bat, chainsaw, and he looks up and there's a samurai sword.
Yeah, it's like a samurai sword or something, right? Like a big, huge ceremonial sword.
Yeah, and it's like the audience chuckles at that. He goes down there and talk about because Dwayne, of course, gets sliced with that thing. Talk about the setup for that.
Yeah. I mean, there was I know they shot several variations on it. Some gorier than others, where they made prosthetic guts spilling out and all kinds of stuff. But as I recall, and I'm embarrassed to admit, I haven't seen the movie for a few years now. I try to, I end up watching it every 5 or 6 years, but I think it's just a neat slice and then he falls out of frame, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but there were gorier versions of that. Not unlike my friend Phil Lamar, who plays Marvin, the nephew of Ving Rhames, who ends up getting accidentally shot in the backseat of the car.
Is that Ving Rhames' real nephew?
No, not in real life.
Oh.
But I think in the film, I think it's his nephew.
Oh, I did not know that.
Well, there you go. I think it is, actually. I think they refer to your uncle wants to see you or something like that.
Oh, okay.
I might be wrong about that. Don't quote me.
You know what? It could be something new for me, too, so hey.
Yeah, but anyway, but I think that's the case. Anyway, when he gets shot in the back of the seat of the car by John Travolta's character, Vincent Vega, you don't see his head getting blown off. But apparently they did shoot, which I've never seen, a version where there was like a dummy head that gets blown up. But I guess it was too gory and gross, so...
That scene always gets a laugh, largely because of Samuel L. Jackson's reaction.
Yeah. Well, it's just like, what a mess you made of my car is the first.
You should be in the back seat picking up brains and shit. We're switching places. You're going back here.
Exactly.
When I got done using my cloth didn't look like no damn maxi pad.
So good.
But yeah, well, also Peter Green. I don't even want to know what they did to him after, but what he did while on screen was pretty bad.
To quote the movie, get medieval on his, you know what? Yeah, you don't want to know. You don't want to know what that means, because it always looks like we've done about the most horrible stuff you can do to a guy. So it's going to be worse. Yeah.
Well, to quote the Big Lebowski, he's not going to have his Johnson.
Exactly. exactly right.
Oh boy,
The
was
least
he?
of it, and I think the least of his worries at that moment, actually.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
No, that is one disturbing scene, but I gotta
Mhm.
say, we all remember the Gimp, and I know that
Oh.
was the one scene you were in,
Mhm.
but did you get to meet John Travolta and Samuel
No,
Jackson?
I didn't. No, I didn't get to meet those guys. I remember we had, at the screening, I got to say hello to a number of the actors in it, in the movie. Like I got to say hi to Uma Thurman and Christopher Walken. So it was really cool meeting. There was, the cast of that film is amazing. So and Tim Roth, I got to meet, but I didn't get to meet those guys, unfortunately.
Well, I gotta say, Christopher Walken just had the one scene, but look how compelling he is.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
That's one of the best film monologues in cinema history. I think the whole Watch monologue is really. I mean, it's almost worth watching Pulp Fiction just for that.
I wonder if he still gets asked if he stores a watch up his ass.
Yeah. You saw the watch up there. Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, he's obviously he's had an amazing career and he's a brilliant actor. But I think that's one of the highlights of his career, actually. And it's just that one scene, and it's a monologue essentially, and it's just note perfect. So good.
And I love it when he holds that watch out to the boy, and the boy reaches out, and then Bruce Willis comes out of a dream nightmare state, before the big boxing.
Yeah. And that's in the just before the fight, right? It's in in the locker room. Yeah. So good.
Great editing, great cutting. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And of course the music throughout.
I got the soundtrack. Yes.
Oh yeah, it's an amazing soundtrack. I forget the name of the song that's like in the Gimp scene. It's a surf instrumental, Comanche or Apache, something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but an amazing little, funky little surf instrumental. And then you have like Dusty Springfield and Al Green. It's just an amazing soundtrack.
My favorite song from it, I think, is "Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon." Urge Overkill.
Urge Overkill, the great '90s band. That's right.
Yeah,
and that's a Neil Diamond song that they're covering, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
I loved watching Uma Thurman do that little dance there. And of course, the backstory here is Vincent Vega, played by John Travolta, was ordered by his boss to take his wife out for a good time. And let's face it, Uma Thurman looks quite stunning, and he's in the washroom.
Gorgeous in the movie.
Yeah, and he's kind of trying to keep himself in check,
Yeah, he's trying to do the right thing.
But
and in fact, he has that great little monologue when he's talking to himself in the mirror about, all right, just do this, go home, do the right thing monologue.
Yeah.
And it's so good.
And I love it there when she overdoses and she's and then it fades, and then you just see the stuff dripping off her, and her nose is bleeding. You hear John Travolta. It's like John Travolta's like, that's
on the phone to Eric Stoltz, the drug dealer.
Yeah, I loved Eric Stoltz in this too. It's like
he's so good, and I love they have that whole conversation about I'm bringing her over, and you're going to help me with this chick who's OD'd. And they're screaming back and forth at each other. And finally, Eric Stoltz's character says, "Who is this, by the way?" I love that. That's a whole conversation.
And I like it when they're arguing in the front. I love it when they're arguing in the front yard, and John Travolta just lets her drop there for a minute.
It's so great.
And of course,
and Eric Stoltz. Again, a movie ridiculously overflowing with great performances. That's another great one.
And let's face it, Rosanna Arquette.
Oh yeah, she's his girlfriend, right, with the little piercing.
Oh yeah, and she's just delighting in this.
Oh yeah, it's the highlight of the week for her.
And this, of course, brings up the second reference to Psycho in this movie.
Oh.
Yes, because we all know the famous shower scene. It's, in Psycho, the whole thing is what you don't see. And every
Mm-hmm.
time the knife, you hear a cut, it's actually a cut for film. You never
Yeah.
see the
Yeah.
blade touch Janet Leigh's body.
No.
Well,
Yeah.
Quentin did the same thing during the needle puncturing scene where they have to puncture the needle into Uma Thurman's chest
To get her heart going.
to
Yeah.
get her heart going. And
Uh-huh.
it goes down and it just cuts like that. And I was like, psycho.
Wow, that's so great. Yeah, there might even be a few more Psycho references to uncover in the film. That's so cool you found those two.
I did, yes. And no, I've seen Pulp Fiction so many times. It's like I'm always seeing new stuff. But that scene was
Always a sign of a great movie.
Yeah, well, I love the fact, and she's just sitting there with that needle hanging out of her chest, and Rosanna Arquette's like trippy.
I know, just breathing and the needle sticking out of her chest. Yeah, it's amazing.
And of
So
course, I love that their final scene together, where we number one, that Jack's Rabbit Slims, is the great dialogue between this is what makes Quentin so great, is he's not talking about the plot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we get this conversation about the Fox Force 5,
Yeah, the TV pilot she was in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they go back there and they talk about. She goes, "You want to hear the joke, the tomato joke?" And John, of course,
a nice callback.
Yeah, and you know what? And then he says, I'm too exhausted to laugh or something like that. And I love that there's kind of an understanding between them on this. Yeah,
like we can never speak of this ever again after this moment. Yeah, it's so cool.
Yes, but there's
so cool.
something kind of endearing about it too.
Oh yeah. No, they've definitely bonded over the course of that night.
Yep, they have.
The night that started with the expensive milkshake and ends up getting a needle shoved into her heart. Yeah.
Oh, the Jack Rabbit Slim sequence was such a masterpiece. Like, the references to Marilyn Monroe, and you had Steve Buscemi playing Buddy Holly.
Yep. It's so cool.
Oh, that was so great. Yeah. And it was such a great set. And you talk about a movie being made for $9 million, and it's like, that set alone just looked like it cost a lot.
Yeah, it probably did. In fact, the cast party was held on that set. That's where we had the rap party for the movie was on that set. So there you go.
Steve Buscemi sing as Buddy Holly?
No, he did not.
Or they could have got Frankie Muniz. Frankie Muniz played Buddy Holly in Walk Hard.
Oh, there you go. You probably would have done it.
But again, part of Quentin's genius, is that, here's what I always tell people. I love it when movies don't talk about the plot. And of course, the first time you see Travolta and Jackson, it's like they're talking about Royale with cheese, in Amsterdam.
Yeah, about what fast food you can buy in the Netherlands.
Yeah, we don't know where they're going. They're just talking. And then when they're in the trunk of their car, they're getting guns out. There's something's going to go down, but they're still they're talking about the guy got thrown out the window in order to.
Yeah, they're gossiping about a coworker, basically.
Yeah, and it gets them talking about Marcellus and about his wife, who he's going to take out, and about the fact she was in this pilot. And then the foot massage thing, and I love that whole bit. Yeah,
no, Quentin's ear for dialogue is impeccable. It's how people really talk, and like you said, it's not dialogue to propel the story forward. He's going to let the images and the action tell you what the story is, but the dialogue is a perfect counterpoint. I think he even says, because you're wondering, well, what are hitmen like when they're not on the job, and they're standing outside the door where they're going to kill these guys, the apartment door. And I think one of them says, "Time to get into character," and they, become hitmen and menacing and scary guys. Before that, like you said, they're just a couple of dorks talking about nonsense.
Yeah, I love that, and the whole interrogation,
Mhm.
of Phil Lamar and, of
Yeah.
course, Frank Whaley.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Such a good performance.
Flock of
Yeah, and
Seagulls.
mhm. And of course that's when Samuel L. Jackson, like you're saying, when you're watching that film, you can't in that whole sequence when he quotes the Bible and all that stuff. It's just so it's just such a compelling performance.
I looked that Bible verse up, and I don't think it's accurate.
It's probably not.
I mean, I read from my Bible, I'm not a scholar on it, but,
Yeah,
I grew up in the church and whatnot, and I'm like, I
sure.
looked that up, and it's like, I don't see any accuracy here.
No, no, it just sounds good.
I guess so.
I guess, yeah.
But
Um,
no, all of this is great stuff, and of course, great, fantastic cast. Now you mentioned Julius Sweeney in it, and
mhm.
it's here's the thing, January we just this past January we just lost Dick Miller, and
Oh, that's right.
yeah,
That's
and
right. Who plays her dad in the movie?
I was so friggin' blessed to have Dick Miller on my show at the end of last
Yeah.
August. He was such a
Wow.
gracious guy, and I'm so glad I reached out because I didn't have him on my list of people to reach out to, and I just thought on a whim I would try, and
Yeah,
I got him. And
that's so cool.
when I heard of
Well,
his,
just such a long and prolific career to discuss.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he and I talked about the fact that his scene got number one. Quentin should have kept that scene in. I'm sorry, it was just great.
Come on, Quentin. Yeah. It just have Dick Miller on screen for a few moments. Yeah.
But Dick Miller was saying that when they went to the premiere, they were kind of surprised to see him because I guess he wasn't on the list or something like that, and
Oh,
and
really?
he
Ooh.
showed up there, and his scene's not in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh. Um, but yeah, I remember reading an interview with Quentin
Mm-hmm.
saying how little was deleted from the movie in terms of pretty much everything they shot is in the final cut of the movie
Mm-hmm.
or a part of that scene is. And he said he didn't cut anything that wasn't great. It was just an interest of time or story moving forward and all of the momentum in the film. And I think he specifically said he loved Dick Miller, and the only reason that the scene with him in his office was cut is it kind of the movie was barreling along, and it was kind of a pause in the movie that it didn't quite work. So it had obviously nothing to do with Dick Miller or the scene,
Mm-hmm.
just in the overall structure of the film, you didn't need it anymore.
Well, it was great to see Dick Miller and Harvey Keitel in a scene together.
Yeah, I know. A couple old pros, just doing their thing.
And what a gracious guy! Like, I was so happy to have him on, and because I was going to
Yeah.
reach out to him this year for the 35th anniversary of Gremlins, but
Yeah.
I'm glad I got him when I did, and what a nice
I
guy.
am too. What a good thing to happen in your archives, Greg.
Yes, yeah, no, that was great. Do you have a favorite scene in Pulp Fiction?
Um, the hello.
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I just heard a weird thing. Scene after scene. Well, besides the Gimp scene, of course.
Yeah, the Gimp scene's
I
great.
think
Yep,
it's the scene we talked about, even though it's just Christopher Walken, basically. But
yeah.
I love the watch monologue. I just think so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I also like the scene when Vin Grames is bribing Bruce Willis in the bar
Yep,
to throw the fight.
yep. Yep, that's a great scene. So many great choices of shots. Yeah, I really like the Jackrabbit Slim scene quite a lot, but
Hmm.
just for the set decoration alone.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
and the dance, of course, is remarkable.
well, you have to have John Travolta do a dance.
I know.
Was that written
I
in, or
go
was
down.
that written in, or was that just to get him to dance like he did in Saturday Night Fever in Grease?
Yeah, in Greece. Yeah, of course. More Greece than Night Fever. I don't know. I think it was in the original script, but maybe when he said, "Aha, I'm going to ask John Travolta to do this." Maybe he added the dance, but it works beautifully because it's like you said, those two characters bond over the course of that increasingly dramatic night, and I think that was part of that is that they won the little dance competition. I don't know if they win, but they.
Oh yeah, they won.
Oh, they won.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think John Travolta won a lot more than he bargained for.
Indeed.
What do you remember? Yeah. What do you remember about the premiere?
I don't really remember the premiere at all. In fact, I don't know even if I went to the premiere. I may have been working. So I'm doing what? I couldn't even begin to tell you. It's 25 years ago. The one I remember, of course, is the cast and crew screening, which we went to. Was on the Walt Disney lot out there in Burbank at the theater on the lot there, and that's where lots of people were talking, and that ended up being a party afterwards because, everyone had their suspicions confirmed that they had been there, that they were in a really great film, so everyone was really happy and giddy. But I don't think I didn't go to the premiere, but I did go to the cast and crew screening before the premiere.
What was Uma Thurman like? You said you had met her.
She was lovely. She was a very, very sweet lady and very, kind of shy and actually kind of demure, but she was very cool. She said, "Oh my God, you're the guy who played the Gimp. You're amazing." Because I guess she'd seen the scene or heard about the scene or whatever. And she must have seen it because she was very, very sweet in her, wit.
Now she's killing Bill.
What's that?
Now she's killing Bill.
Yeah, then she went on to kill Bill. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. I like Uma, and I hope she recovers after all this Me Too crap that happened, and but yeah, she's a wonderful actress and very valuable. Yeah, so
she'll be fine. She will be enjoying a performance of hers before too long, I'm sure of it.
I hope so. Yeah, she's great in the film. Love that wig she has on, that dark wig.
Yeah, the little Betty Page wig.
Yeah, that's great. Yep, comfortable silences.
Oh yeah, which is a great little thing because we've all had those when you're, on a first date or just talking to them. That the comfortable silence that happens in all conversations. You were saying like Quentin has that great ear for just dialogue that's, is in perfect sync with the film, but isn't about how is the story moving forward, plot points. But that's, something I like. I think that's a familiar theme in pretty much all of the movies I've ever liked, that all of the characters and all of the dialogue seem to have a life outside of whatever the movie is about or whatever the story of the plot is, that there is, it isn't all about. And another thing, when you walked in here, those kind of expository lines, it's all just the way people actually speak and talk and walk and not, how do we make the movie more dramatic? How do we propel the story forward? It's just that moves forward, again, through imagery and editing and music. And the actors don't have to caption what's happening.
Well, this is a great film, and of course, I do want to mention a few other things that you've been in, because Pulp Fiction is celebrating its 25th anniversary. Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, celebrates 20.
It's a big year for me. What can I tell you? I actually worked with Mike Myers on a lot of his films as a punch-up writer. In other words, pitching jokes for the scripts and on the days of the shoot. So I've known Mike for a number of years, and a lovely guy, lovely Canadian, and obviously a wildly talented guy.
I loved his brief performance there in Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah, he plays the British general or what have you. Right?
Yeah, he's so good in that and so underrated,
Yeah. No, he's a really good actor. Now I think he does bits here and there, and he's kind of semi-retired. Who knows? He may have another Austin Powers movie next year. Who knows what he'll be up to next? But I think he's enjoying married life and raising kids, and yeah, he's just yeah. And as a friend of mine, Mike's a good guy.
Talk about working on The Spy Who Shagged Me.
It was super fun. Like I said, before filming began, I'd helped out with pitching some jokes and things like that on all three Austin Powers movies, and that was a blast. It was me in a room with a bunch of other funny people, just basically pitching jokes on what was already a great script. So easy job. And then, Mike said, do you want to, he had offered me a couple of parts over the course. Again, schedule didn't permit, but I was around to do the magma chamber scene. I was the guard, the inept guard in that scene with Heather Graham and Mike, and it was just a day shoot, and it was super fun, and Heather Graham was, obviously very sweet and talented.
Stunning.
Well, maybe not. Yeah, and just such a lovely woman. It was super fun.
Yep. And of course, you were involved with The Cat in the Hat. I gotta say, I'm not a fan of this movie.
No, it's not a very good film, and Mike would say as much. But it kind of got out of control, and but yeah, there's some funny bits in that movie. Yeah, and I got to get fired right at the beginning of the movie.
Well, it wasn't the worst film that year. Gigli takes that spot.
Oh, well, there you go. Better luck next time.
I mean, it was in a year that had Gigli, the Charlie's Angels Full Throttle from Justin to Kelly,
dear.
The Haunted Mansion. Yeah.
Yeah, not a fit into the golden age of Hollywood. Not a year that would.
And of course, the great film that came out that year, The Room.
Oh dear. See, yeah. Was there anything good got released?
I'd have to really think about that.
Yeah, we'd have to look it up. What year is that? Like 08?
Oh, that was 2003. Yeah, Kill Bill was
way
out
back
that year.
Is it that far long? Wow.
Yeah.
It's like we said at the very beginning of this. Time flies.
Yep, time flies. And of course, you were involved in the writing of It's Pat. Now, I haven't seen this, but I do know the joke about the person that you can't figure out what. Talk about that.
Well, that was when Julia was on Saturday Night Live, so it was a character created there, and there was sketches that we co-wrote together, and had actually created before she got on SNL at the Ground Level Theater, which is where Julia and I met.
Mm-hmm.
And so we became writing partners, and we got a chance to make the movie. And it was all based on when we started dating and started living together and got married subsequently. Around the corner from us, there was a CVS drugstore, and there was someone who worked there who you literally couldn't tell if it was a woman. It was kind of an overweight person, so it could be man breasts, or it could be actual breasts, or had a very high voice. And then some days I would be convinced that it was a woman, and then other days we would walk in and go, "Oh no, it's a guy." So it just became, that was the sort of the seed of that character and the sketches for Julia.
Okay. Well, you've done quite a bit of television as well. What stands out to you that you're most proud of and experiences from that?
I've done TV acting and writing, and I was on the staff of the show called Boy Meets World for a number of seasons. And that was really fun. It was, they always talk about we were a real family, but that really did feel like a family, and that was a really enjoyable show to work on, write on, and I especially loved every once in a while I got to talk to the wonderful actor William Daniels, who played the high school principal in the show, Mr. Feeney, and he just had great Hollywood stories because, of course, he had been in. Two for the Road, is that what it's called? Albert Finney and Audrey Hepburn movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he was in The Graduate. He played the dad in The Graduate, even though I think he's only like 5 years older than Dustin Hoffman.
William Daniels.
Yeah, William Daniels.
Oh, William Daniels, I had him on here a couple of years ago.
Oh, you did? A lovely guy and lots of great stories. And so that was a real cool thing about working on that show, getting to to hear stories every once in a while.
Yeah. Hell, he was great to talk to. Yeah.
And he was great in everything. He's 1776, everything. He was an amazing, and is an amazing actor.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
with us, thankfully.
Yep, he is. Yep. I did had him on for the 50th anniversary of The Graduate.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yep.
He's so good as the dad in that. He's such a great performance.
Yeah. No, an interesting performance out of him, and yeah. Well, you know what? You've done it all. What do you like best, writing or acting, or what do you like best?
I don't know. I think it sort of depends on the project. I'm kind of semi-retired now, so I'm living in Denver, Colorado, enjoying being near my kids, and just enjoying life in Denver now. So there are opportunities. I'll occasionally teach like an improv class here, and that's always fun. And I write for my own pleasure mainly now, but there's a lot of it I really loved, and there's a lot of it that's a bit of a drag. During staffing season, when I was a TV writer, trying to make sure you landed on a show and all of those things. So those parts of it I don't miss, but I do miss it. I worked on a number of the MTV Movie Awards over the years, and those were just like 1 month long jobs, basically writing the show and getting it up and doing it live at the end of it. But I miss being that sort of team of really funny, talented people, and getting to work with them and creating comedy. That is a great way to earn a living. Your job description is be as funny as you can be. That's the job description, basically, and that's a pretty cool job. So there are definitely things that I miss about it, but I'm kind of enjoying being, again, essentially semi-retired and living a very nice life here in the beautiful state of Colorado.
What did you think when the Gimp got an action figure?
I thought it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. Besides the birth of my 3 beautiful children, I should say. But yeah, it's cool. That's something you don't anticipate in your life. Well, someday I'll probably be an action figure.
Yeah, it's interesting the merchandise come out on that, because I got my younger brother Andrew a gift at Christmas time last year. I got him a mug.
And the mug?
It's a mug that had Samuel L. Jackson on it, and it had on the side of it says what was it? Something gourmet shit.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah.
I forget the line now. It escapes me.
Yeah, exactly. When they're having coffee at the house where they go to clean up the car and get rid of the corpse. Yes.
Yeah, this is special gourmet shit.
Yeah, some serious gourmet shit.
Oh yeah, that's what it says. That right on the mug has a picture of Samuel L. Jackson holding the coffee. It says,
I think I need that mug.
Oh, you can get it on Amazon. That's where I found it, and I ordered it for him.
As soon as we're done here, I'm going online and purchasing.
Yeah, it's a white mug with black images on it, and serious gourmet shit. So it's perfect. And some of the videos too you see, like, I don't know if you've seen these online, where you remember the judge that was in court recently there, and there was the whole thing about him drinking too much beer or love beer, and I forget the name of the guy now.
Yeah.
Well, they show there's a thing online where they show his footage where he's answering questions, and instead of his lawyer, they got Samuel L. Jackson on.
Yeah, I think this sounds familiar, right? Yeah.
Yeah. One of the other people on the stand tries to say something. Samuel Jackson cuts to him. I don't remember asking you a gosh darn thing.
great. So good.
Those things are so
Oh
friggin'
yeah,
fun.
Brett Kavanaugh's here.
Brett Kavanaugh,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Yes, that was great. That was brilliant. Yeah.
Somebody put that together, and it's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah, I
funny
remember
stuff.
seeing that. Yeah, that was really, really good.
Yeah.
Yay.
But no, great movie. And you mentioned you've done a few conventions. I ask this of a lot of my guests, and it's
Mhm.
interesting some of the answers I get. But what's the most unique thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Um, Actually, someone brought in a Gimp mask
Okay.
for sure. I think that was the weirdest thing. Usually, it's a poster or a photograph, a still from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I've signed action figure boxes, all those kind of things. But I think someone actually having a bondage mask, that was the weirdest thing I asked to sign. So I said, all right. I think I wrote something like, fund the Gimp.
Isn't it weird that that's your staple in movies? This is playing the Gimp.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Well,
you,
the thing of it is that, for years, it wasn't a thing because it was before online and where you they see, they're online who played the Gimp and their would pop up. But before that, for at least a decade after the movie was released, there was, noise about it in terms of like, who the guy who played the Gimp. And the World Wide Web has made everything sort of out there and accessible.
well, here's the interesting thing too. Like, especially doing a podcast like this, you don't have to go after an A-list celebrity to have an interesting interview. You take
Well, job accomplished today.
well, no, that's not an insult because
No,
it
I
just
know.
shows
I'm
what a
just teasing.
scene-stealing part you had.
Yeah.
Like
No,
everybody remembers the Gimp. Like when I told people I was going to have you on the show today,
Yeah.
like people were like, "Oh, you got the Gimp, and it's like everybody remembers the Gimp,
Oh, that's very. That's
you know?
I know you were upset, but nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It was wonderful having you on today for the 25th anniversary of Pulp Fiction.
Well, the pleasure was all, and thank you again. I can't believe it's been 25 years, but sure enough.
Yeah.
And thank you for. This just felt like we were having a nice chat. So thanks very much. My
Oh, I
friend.
love that. I was going to say there's two things I wanted to mention before I go. Do you have a web page or any charities that you want to plug on here?
Oh, wow, that's wonderful. I will plug a charity that I worked with in LA and volunteered with for many. I'm now living in Colorado, as I mentioned, but it's called School on Wheels,
Okay.
and they provide volunteer tutors and school supplies to homeless kids living in which there are sadly many, and they do wonderful work out there. So it's schoolonwheels.org. Wants to go check out how they can maybe volunteer or help out with on wheels. And in terms of, I don't really have a website,
Okay.
but I do on Facebook have a Facebook page called The Real Gimp.
Okay.
And if you want to, and I'll post, Pulp and trivia. If I'm doing a fan convention, I'll post about cool shows, ephemera from from being the Gimp and Pulp Fiction. It can all be found there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yay!
Well, listen, do you know where I'm located here in New Brunswick, Canada?
Yes, beautiful Canada.
Yeah. We're in that
Canada.
we're in that hidden little province called New Brunswick. Yeah, I'm actually 4 hours ahead of you.
Part of the Maritime.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I know Canada. I have lots of great friends from Canada, and lots of funny guys. I know Rob Cohen, Mike Myers, Dave Foley, Kevin McDonald. Know all those cats.
Do you know the Trailer Park Boys?
Yeah, I've heard of the Trailer Park Boys. I'm not that familiar with them, but well,
I'd like to see the Gimp on the Trailer Park Boys.
now we're talking. But I'm a Canadiophile way back. Born in England, so I'm part of the Commonwealth as well. So there you go.
Oh, you mean where Monty Python is from?
Oh, very much so. Indeed.
We need to have the Gimp meets Monty Python.
Yeah, Oregon. Yeah, in Fleetwood, Lancashire. My family immigrated to the United States in the 60s, so I grew up in LA basically. But I have lots of roots, especially on my mom's side, back in Lancashire.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, before you go, would you mind very much doing a plug for my show?
Hi, this is Steve Hibbert, and I played the Gimp in Pulp Fiction. And I'll be on Greg Gilbert's Python's Paradise out of beautiful New Brunswick, Canada. Hope you'll be able to listen.
Yes, we brought out the Gimp today for the 25th anniversary of Pulp Fiction.
Well, you're very kind, Greg. It's lovely chatting with you, and thank you for asking. Again, you have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, you take care, and God bless you.
I got you, my friend. Bye for now.
Yep, bye-bye.